Good morning. Today is Tuesday, July 5th, 2022. It's about 6:45 a.m. here in Layton, Utah. You can see we're overlooking a nice little mountain area, as well as the Hobbs Reservoir would be further on down. Today we're going to be doing a nice early morning bike ride. There's several different trails that I've covered before, and last year actually around the 4th of July. I'll flip the camera around. Last year around the 4th of July I did several videos showing off trails in Farmington, Ogden, and going from Layton to Salt Lake. But I didn't have this full-blown chest mount at the time, nor did I have the recording device that I have right now. All I had was my phone, so hopefully get to shoot some nice footage. Initially I'm just walking up this hill because, believe it or not, this is probably the worst hill. So don't want to expend my energy early on with that. But yeah, in a little bit we'll get started riding here. I'll attach this to my chest, and what we're going to do is we're going to ride through some city streets in Layton in order to get near the Layton train station. But we're going to go beyond the Layton train station and start taking a trail that goes toward Ogden. This trail that I'm going to take I've ridden before, going the opposite direction toward Salt Lake City, but never toward Ogden, so that's why I chose to do this as my first chest mount video in Utah, because it includes at least some unexplored territory by myself, and I believe some of the trail links are a little bit new. So yeah, we'll get started here in a second. Alright, my camera is set up, tilt locked mode is on, and battery charger in. So let's get started. I think I forgot to mention earlier that it is currently 66 degrees here in Layton, Utah, which is probably the primary reason why I'm starting the bike ride so early in the day. These street names are still haven't figured them out, but they have numbers and directions in a lot of these names. So instead of having, for example, street names that I'm familiar with, like Elmira, Fidelity, this one up here is 1450 East. So you kind of have to remember both the number, and then it crosses with like 2550 north. Those are like most of the side streets. When you do get up to a main street, that's where you see a street named Church Street, although it also has 1400 East as like a synonym for it. This is Sandridge Park. They would have not done a main fireworks show there yesterday, but that's one of the parks where people are permitted to shoot off fireworks. So some people gather up there for the 4th of July. So it's roughly a 24-minute bike ride going to the Layton station from where I'm at. So this will not be city streets, or sorry, this will not be a true bike trail within the city streets, although the sidewalk, at least on Church Street, isn't bad. And once you get further on down, there's certain areas where there's low volumes of traffic, so you can pretty safely ride in the curb lane of the street. On the left here are some houses that are all pretty new within the past, I want to say 5 years. 5 years or less. Some of them are actually just being finished and built. The funny thing is, when I look at the value of these new houses on the left here, I think the highest one comes in at $2 million, which seems like a lot, but the houses themselves are huge and they have like big lots of land. But then when you compare it to where we were the other day during my live stream in Park City, Utah, that was back on July 3rd, those houses were so tiny and crammed on top of each other with maybe like you're lucky if you had a 10 foot by 5 foot front yard. And yet those houses, a lot of them were going for, or being listed as $5 million houses on Zillow. The weather feels awesome right now. I've been here since June 30th, and the temperatures have mostly been in the low to mid 90s. Granted, any day you come out early on in the day or go out later in the day, it's going to get cooler. But the 66 degrees right now is the coolest I've felt, which is going to make it easier for the start of the bike ride. Probably an hour from now it'll be about 74 degrees. Then another hour later it'll be low to mid 80s, and then eventually it'll get up to the low 90s. Oh, we do have the animals out. I think in the past when I've done some videos or bike rides near this area, the animals haven't quite been out. But the other day they were right near the fence. Now they're further on back, all the cows, enjoying the early morning grass. Here's a roundabout up here where Church Street and I believe it's Antelope Drive, Antelope Drive, both intersect. There is a crosswalk just up here. We're not going to go down Antelope Drive, we're continuing down Church Street. There's quite a few more rocks here than I'm accustomed to. Not sure why they're all scattered around. I don't want to ride over those. There's a nice shot of the mountain area. I have thought about doing a video down that way before, but the challenge is once you get closer to the mountains, there really is not a sidewalk. It's mostly street and then converts to a area that looks like a highway. So I quite haven't found the right path to cross over to the mountains safely, whether it be bicycling or walking. Now granted, I could do it and go in like the curb lane of the highway, which does have a decent amount of space, but just that's the reason why I haven't done a video going that way yet. Much prefer a true sidewalk or dedicated bike lane. I should mention too, it's always easy going to the Layton station from where I started because the majority of it is downhill. So that allows you to coast, and it probably allows you to, if you were really humming, you could get to the Layton station faster than what Google Maps says. But if anytime I've tried to go the reverse direction, it is quite miserable because it is uphill. It's not like you're just walking up one hill and then resume riding. No, it's uphill pretty much the entire way. Looks like we missed this light, so we'll wait here. Probably try to pause the video occasionally when there's a traffic light, like now. Oh, that was actually a really quick light. Probably 10 seconds after I stopped the video, it changed. So initially here we'll start off on the sidewalk. And this is still Church Street. I know they paved this road up until a certain point. So initially the road portion starts out smooth. But unless something's changed in the past several months, once you get a little bit further ahead, it's not paved anymore. Yeah, right here is just the old little bit of bumpy gravel. And in the sidewalk portion, once you see those yellow lines up ahead, that's where I'm going to go down into the street. Duck underneath the tree so my head doesn't get face full of tree. Yeah, like I said, there's often very low volume of traffic on this road. There is a sidewalk on the other side of the street, but that likewise is going to end at that little yellow marker. Pulling over because I hear a vehicle in the distance. All right, that's the last vehicle for a bit. The one negative about this camera is that oftentimes, the video portion is just showing the plain road ahead of me, and you can probably see a little bit of the mountains in the background, but if I turn my head to the left, that's where I get like the beautiful view of the mountains. I'll have to try to see, probably not in today's video, but if I decide to do a full recorded video from Layton to Salt Lake. I may experiment with seeing if I can turn this recording device to the left even while I'm riding forward and keep in that position for a little bit of the riding. But that would be a longer ride. Me and my partner did that ride last year. In fact, it was very close to 1 year from today. It was, I believe, July 3rd. Pull up on the sidewalk here. Yeah, July 3rd, 2021. We did the ride from Layton all the way to Salt Lake, but we got a little bit late of a start. Probably instead of this early in the morning, it was probably around like 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. or maybe even later that we started. And that, because of like resting here and there, that one took us about 3.5 hours, and the sun was beating down that day and got up to 90s. So this is Fort Lane that we just went on briefly. Crossing with Gordon Avenue. What we're going to do is we're going to make a little bit of a right and turn down Church Street. So Church Street actually continues down that way. You can see the light just changed for us. So now we're continuing on Church Street. This one sometimes has a little bit more traffic, but the street is paved on this portion. Sidewalks aren't too bad, but still it's nicer in the street, especially when you have cars parked over the sidewalk in some spots. Oftentimes you hear them say share the road. So yes, I could ride extra fast and share the road with the vehicles, but I'm trying to take it easy right now and just enjoy the ride, narrate a little bit, and that's why I pay attention if there's a car coming behind me. I just pull over. Again, this is all downhill. I think when you look at Google Maps and it tells you like the footage, it says like the highest that you climb is maybe like a 50-foot climb at some point, which is probably where I started out walking. But then eventually you're declining by like 480 feet throughout the duration of the trip. And this trail that I'm heading to, I actually could have gone down Antelope Drive and been closer to like the Clearfield train station. But when you look at Google Maps, it shows that as a 27-minute drive for biking. And the Layton Station, despite the fact that it looks further away on the map, is only 24 minutes, and I attribute that to the change in elevation. Plus, it'll allow me to show a little bit more of the trail and how you get there. So anytime I can serve multiple purposes on a video, I try to do it. Still no cars coming behind me, so I'm going to cross over at this next driveway here. You're going to think I'm a liar when I said no cars coming behind me, but as I was saying that, that car was coming off of a different side street behind me. But I like being on the left side of the street here because there is a busier intersection up ahead. Now, one thing of note, the Layton Station I'm heading toward, you can either go up the hill and down Main Street, or you can take this little path which will get you to the same spot. But just imagine all it is a path that takes you like 1 to 2 blocks further. I kind of like, for demonstration purposes, showing this path instead, because even though I'm trying to showcase a lot of bike trails, I'm also trying to give perspective of how close you are to certain things, like for example one of the main streets in the city, and as we'll see in a second, the train station, so that if you do decide to connect various forms of transportation, you know how to get maybe to certain places via car, bicycle, walking, or train. Like one of the things I've done before is I will ride the bike down the exact path you've just taken, and I'll bring it to the Layton train station and then hop on there. The train runs about, I think it's every hour at this time of day. Certain times of day it'll run every half hour. I believe it's every hour now, so just got to make sure you time it up right with when you're leaving. But then if you want to go from Layton to Salt Lake City on the train, it's only a 30-minute ride. So if there's a day that, for example, maybe I just want to showcase stuff in downtown Salt Lake City or do something down there, well, rather than riding 2.5 hours on the bike if you're going non-stop, it's just better to take the train. And I've done that too when I've gone further than Salt Lake City. I did videos last year at Thanksgiving Point and several of the other cities in Utah that are further south. I've gone to a place called Gardner Village twice, so both times again I just take the bike on the various modes of transportation, connecting on both the Frontrunner train, and also there are like red line and green line and blue line trains that take you further on. Got about 1 second till it changes. But I think the vehicles behind me will get the turn lane first. Nope. Guess I get it first. Unfortunately, I forgot to set my watch. Usually I like to track how far I've been riding. I'll still try to make the best of it, though. I just set my watch to go off now. You can see some vehicles entering the Layton station right here, which is on my right. So if you were working, for example, in a different city or downtown Salt Lake City, you could park your vehicle here. There's lots at every station. The Layton station actually probably has one of the smallest parking lots that I've seen. But it's still a decent sized lot. But yeah, you could get off there and then hop on the train. Just 30 minutes to Salt Lake. And then Cafe Sabor is also on the right here, so there's a separate parking lot for that, a restaurant. This is the only other uphill portion. You see, the hills aren't so bad when they're just a brief hill. And then we'll make a right turn here. And now we'll be going downhill again. And let me pull over for a second. And I've said this before in certain videos, but again, that's the Layton station. If you took it going that way, that's north. So that would take you eventually to Ogden as the final stop. So when I get to this bike trail that's over on my left, I'll be headed that direction, which will again seem kind of funny because I just came from over there, but what can I say? It makes sense when you look at Google Maps. And if you took the train going south or the bike trail going south, that's where you go toward Farmington, Woods Cross, Salt Lake, and then a bunch of other places further south. Let me check my phone for a second and then I'll continue. Alright. Took my little break for a minute or two there. One thing I always say about anytime I've been to Utah, you're always seeing new construction. I was by this area, I think I was by here in February, but definitely was by here last year. You can see it says coming spring 2023 Tanner Clinic, but there's other buildings being built here too. So I wouldn't be surprised if some residential type of housing units went up. But it is much further along already than when I was last in this area. See a bike rider coming toward my direction. Let me pull over so they have enough room. Anytime I see a bike rider or walker coming toward me, I always try to, this only didn't change because I didn't press the button in time. It's green that way. And anytime there's a bike rider coming toward me, for example, I always try to pull over and just, let them go by. Because sure, there's enough room for both of us to ride by, but I always think to myself, pulling over only takes, half a second? And I just don't prefer riding full speed. And you never know if someone's going to sway one way or the other. Some guy is doing jump rope over here on the right, getting his nice early morning cardio in. Bicycling's one of the things that I know keeps me to the degree of fit that I am, but there's a lot more I could do, probably such as jump roping to improve how my body handles other exercises. Yeah, I forgot to mention the street. When we turned on that bridge, we were going over Layton Parkway, and this cross section here is called Flint Street. So that's the intersection we're at now. There's an Intermountain Layton Hospital over there. So that's probably the main hospital. I see an emergency room over there as well. I think we got about 2 seconds until the light changes. Otherwise, I would have paused the video. I did put in a gigantic memory card for today's video. Previously, I was using a 128 gigabyte card, and I used the full space of the card about 3 weeks ago when I did, or I think the total ride ended up being a little over 2.5 hours, and I recorded, that was all recorded footage. So that was still a lot, but you never know what you're going to venture off into on rides like this, and I'd rather be able to show more than have to confine myself. So that's why I got a 256 gigabyte card. So that should give us at least 4 to 5 hours of recording time. Shouldn't take that long, because I believe the ride to Ogden, once I get to this official part of the trail, is about an hour or so. And by the way, I always love this cute little trail that we're cutting into right now. I could have continued on Layton Parkway for a little bit further on, and I would have joined up with the trail that I'm headed to in a second. But I love this mini trail that diagonals, even though there's flies in my face, that diagonals into the, I'm trying to think what the name was. I always get the order mixed up. It's either Denver and Rio Grande or Rio and Denver Grande. Probably Denver and Rio Grande. I think this house on the left always has a nice little bicycle decoration. Yep, I don't know if you can catch that in the video. I don't know if I remember these gates being positioned like that before. But last year when my partner and I went to Salt Lake, we parked our vehicle and had the bikes hitched up on the back of it. We parked it on the side street and then continued on from there. Yeah, Denver Rio Grande Western Railway. That's what this part of the trail is called. So we are here where the star is, if this video is picking it up, and we're going to take it toward Clearfield and eventually goes to Ogden. We started off near this area. Again, I don't know if this is showing up in the map, but we started off near this area because I was pointing out the Hobbs Reservoir and East Cayes Creek Trail that we were looking down on, and the mountains would have been over here. So I rode down basically Church Street most of the way, went over here, and then now we're right here. So again, we're going to be now going this way toward Ogden. What I was saying earlier is we could have taken either this road or down here and gone connected to the trail, but this is more flat and slightly uphill. This is like downhill, and once you get here, this is all a flat trail. If we went south, that would take us toward, again, Farmington and Salt Lake, and eventually you would go, the further south you go, eventually this trail ends, but converts into or connects to the Jordan River Parkway. Yeah, and there's also a description here on Cayes Creek and some background about water usage, so we'll get started here in just a second again. I'm pausing occasionally again to either check my phone or take a couple pictures. Always like to have a collection of pictures for later on. Some of the pictures I'll take while I'm still recording the video. Alright, so here's the crossroads. You go left, then you're headed toward Salt Lake. You go right, and then you're going toward Ogden. So one of these days, hopefully I can do a full video going toward the left. But now we'll explore kind of new territory and head toward Ogden. There is a small portion of this that's not completely new to me going this direction, and that's because back in February, that's cute though, I don't know if you can see the rocks on the left here are all colored a certain, or various colors, but back in February I did a walking live stream in the city of Layton, and I believe that was close to a two and a half hour video. So I was walking through a lot of Layton, and then I don't know if this is meant for me. Both cars seemed stopped before I even got to the intersection. But yeah, I did a 2.5 hour live stream walking through Layton, and then eventually at some point I actually caught a trolley that took me to the Layton station, and I walked, and when I got to this part I walked about, I want to say 1 or 2 blocks before ending the live stream. But that was during the cold weather and the trees weren't all nice and green. One thing I love about the beginning portions of this trail, going either direction, is even though the fences are on the left and right, you're high enough up where you kind of get a peek into people's backyards. And I don't mean that in a like a stalkerish way. What I mean is, to me it's so cool to look at. Like, oh, look at that person, they have like a basketball court in their backyard, or they have a pickleball court. This one doesn't have a fence over here, one of the rare places it doesn't. And see, basketball, even though it's a half court. It's almost like, I mean, you don't want to say the norm because not every house has a basketball court, but there are so many of them. Like, I feel like 10% of the houses at least have a basketball rim and half court like that. Another good part about the beginning parts of this trail are the shade relief that the trees offer. I'll be curious to see how that goes once we get a little bit further on out, because headed the other direction towards Salt Lake, it's like this through Layton, and a little bit further on you can see more cows there and some horses, right? That's like a baby horse. But yeah, like I was saying, it's like this for a portion of the trail, but then there's a much larger portion where you're just riding kind of in the middle of pure farmland and nothingness and industrial like stuff, where it's all open sun, so it's not quite scenic, or you're riding along the highway. Yeah, so that day that I did my live stream, I know I stopped the video itself short of this intersection. Oh, so there's no actual crosswalk here, which is kind of interesting. You would think they would have a crosswalk that directly connects the trail. That's why I got up and walked it. But yeah, after I finished that live walk that day, I ended up going down City Street. So this is officially, for me, a new portion of the trail. Do have some tree coverage on the right side here. Looks like it'll resume again further up ahead on both directions. if anyone's deciding to watch the duration of this bike riding adventure, as I always try to encourage, feel free to hit the like button or give us a subscribe if you haven't already. We're always looking to grow the channel, and your support or comments always help inspire and motivate me to continue doing more. See, earlier I was talking about new construction. I don't know how well it shows up on the video, but all the houses toward this direction, you can still see like the wood outsiding. So those are all new houses being developed. The ones that were behind those houses, like a little bit south of them, they already have all the siding up, and I can see like a basketball court in the backyard. So I assume that at some point, whatever little area or community that was, it was built up to a certain point, and now it's being expanded. I obviously have not checked, so I have no clue specifically what these houses are going for, but if I had to guess, I'm going to say new, they would probably be close to 500, 600,000. So again, we're on the Denver Rio Grande trail. Eventually, as we get further on, this trail is going to end. And in previous years, when I've looked at Google Maps, there would have had to have been a certain area where you would have had to have traveled in the street and like gone out of your way a little bit to eventually connect to the trail that goes through the downtown portion of Ogden, Utah, which I love that trail. The one day I did it, and that was included in my Ogden, Utah video last year, portions of it through my cell phone. But yeah, in previous years I was curious, like, oh, I'd love to take this trail out there and connect to it, but there wasn't quite a good connection. Now when I look at Google Maps, even though it's a bit disjointed, it looks like there are like trails that have been carved out. Like they couldn't make it completely straight like this is, because existing infrastructure already existed, whether it be houses or businesses. But maybe they'll have you go like 50 to 100 feet to your left or right, and there's a trail for 2 blocks. Then, you know, when you get to that intersection, there's another trail, small trail portion that's a bit to your left or right, and so on and so forth. I'm looking left and right. There's zero traffic coming. So yeah, that was one of the motivating reasons for me wanting to also do this trail this morning, because I said, hey, let me check out some of these newer paths that make it kind of a full connection. And perhaps if people have taken this bike path in the past years ago, maybe they'll find or agree that it's relatively new as far as the connection portion goes. Even though we can't see houses on the left and right, this is still, I like how they have the greenery on both sides. Now granted, when you get a certain part of the day where the sun is a little bit higher, like right above us. I don't know how much shade you're gonna get. There's a random bench here on the right. And anytime you see me cross when the hand is still up, I've clearly checked both directions to make sure there's no one in sight. I don't believe we've hit Clearfield yet, which is the next city after Layton, although maybe we're on the border of Clearfield. Looks like one house over here has built their own little bridge, even though there's still a locked gate. They built a little bridge if they want to connect to the trail. Yeah, this area is more so a ditch on the left, but there's other portions either earlier or going the other direction where there would be like little, what do you want to call them, sidewalks or pathways that go right up to people's gates or backyards. I don't know if we're near like a source of water or something, but I'm feeling like really cold air for a second there. That was weird. That was like a 10-second stretch where there was almost like an air conditioning unit was just blowing on me. So this is 2200 west that we just passed up. Now we're at even much lower elevation compared to the houses that are on either side. So the ditches are getting higher and higher and further back. If anyone's curious how fast I'm going in terms of miles per hour on like a flat path like this, when I look down at my watch, it usually fluctuates between 9.5 and 10 miles per hour. And that's with my legs doing just a very light, comfortable workout. If I was like on a mission wanting to get somewhere, then yes, on a flat path like this, I could probably average more like 12 to 13 miles per hour. But I'm not looking to exert myself, as I mentioned earlier. Just looking for a calm, relaxing ride. Still early in the morning here. Let me try to check what time it is. 7:56 right now, a.m. And let's see if the temperature has gone up yet. $73, and it does say we're in Clearfield now. Further proof of the elevation difference. We had just crossed a road earlier, but now look where the road is. There's a bridge above us. And I do remember that looking at Google Maps, where this trail eventually is going underneath these, because a lot of times when I scout a bike path on Google Routes, I always like to look at the intersections ahead of time to see if I can get a peek at the condition of the trail. For a lot of the intersections, you could see where it matches up with the street, but then all of a sudden you put Google Maps on a certain street and all you see is the bridge, and you just assume that the bike path goes underneath it. Now this portion does look like we're doing a slight incline upward, so maybe we are going to get back to street level at some point. Now the path is in between some more industrial places. I know the trucks on the left say Swift. Refrigerated units. But I don't know if that's I don't think that's the actual factory, because like this truck here says King's Farm Trucking or Maybach. Yeah, I can't quite describe what factories are in these places. There's a warning sign inside the shrubbery on the right. It said, warning, fiber optic cables. I'm not equipped with those long sleeve biking shirts that offer either warmth in the cold weather or help with sun ray light and preventing maybe sunburns during the warmer parts of the year. But like I said earlier, that's why I'm doing the ride early in the morning. You hate to be out in this when it's 90 plus degrees in that direct focused sunlight. I mean, it probably will be 90 by the time I'm done in the Ogden area. But my plan is to probably take the Ogden Frontrunner Station back toward Layton. I'm not going to ride like all the way back. As far as the trail itself goes, though, like, you can't get any smoother than this has been. So it's in great condition, no bumps anywhere. And overall, it still remains relatively flat, and that's how I remember it. That was a big thing that surprised me when I went from Layton to Salt Lake that time, is that the trail was just flat. So you didn't have to worry about pedaling uphill, downhill, or overexerting yourself. Now, some people may not prefer that. You know, they may want a little bit of the challenge. I will say there are parts of the Jordan River Parkway Trail further south that I've ridden a little bit of before. I do have a lot more up and down spots to it, including near, I believe, Thanksgiving Point. That was actually a mess the one time I went to Thanksgiving Point. I went there before Halloween time because I wanted to see the scarecrows that were at I forget the name of the botanical garden or garden area. But at Thanksgiving Point, there was an area showing off creative scarecrows that people had developed for Halloween. So I thought, on Google Maps there was like a street path and sidewalk that could take you right to the front, but it looked like on Google Maps that the bicycle trail went right behind the garden. So I just assumed that at some point there would be a connection, like a little, deviation path where you could go from the bike path to the scarecrow thing. Hold on one second here, because we have a crossroads. Do I go up or down? I gotta check this on Google Maps. I remember there was one point that was so no, we want to go left. Yeah, if you go to the right, that just takes you out to the city roads. Or does it? You know what? This may be tricky with the Yeah, I gotta check Google Maps again, because maybe that was supposed to go down. That person's going that way. Maybe that's the way I'm supposed to go. Alright, after closer inspection, we do want to continue on this portion that was down here. Going on underneath a little tunnel here. That'll take us underneath the bridge. Interesting that as soon as we've crossed that portion of the bridge, seems like we're getting a lot more activity in terms of seeing other cyclists, joggers, dog walkers. Wonder how steady the gimbal or recording device would stay if I jogged or ran with the chest mount on. I have to imagine that would be a little too shaky of footage, because at least with the bike, my chest isn't like bouncing all over the place. Something called the Freeport Center is on the left. I didn't look at this portion of the trail on Google Maps, so this is even newer to me. I didn't know we'd be riding alongside a road. In a more ideal circumstance, I should have left and began the bike ride probably like 45 minutes earlier. Then I really could have taken advantage of even more of the cooler weather before the sun came out. That's all right, it's still good. Just something for me to note if I decide to do another bike ride adventure tomorrow or this week. Have another tunnel dug out here. Now it feels like we're back, deja vu, to where we started the trail almost. Or am I sure I just didn't transform back there? Go ahead and take a picture. We're surrounded by, oops. Just checking on Google Maps where we're at. Looks like we're approaching Clinton, and there should be something called Steed Park up ahead. One thing that just about every single house seems to have is a trampoline on the left side. most of the trampolines are, normal and above ground, but there are some that you'll see that are dug into the ground, which when it becomes windy weather helps prevent them from blowing away, becoming a flying projectile possibly if it's not tied down tight enough. You got a peek at some horses there. Probably can only see the one that's close to me, but back there, just underneath the trees, there's one black horse, but there's also like 3 tiny looking ones. Maybe you can see them better here. I assume those are baby horses, unless they're goat. Those may be goat now that I'm looking closer. Yeah, I couldn't see them quite before. I think they're various goats. And what do we have on the left here? More housing development where all these piles are. One can assume that one day the houses will expand over here. They're just probably putting on all the piping infrastructure first. It's crazy how much work is involved to do that stuff. And yet, if I come by from one year to the next, you'll see like a whole community just finished and built. I'm sure the cookie cutter nature of some of these houses does play into that though. I mean, these ones aren't necessarily like identical to each other, but they're pretty similar in terms of material and such. Got some political signs attached here. I feel like I see a big soccer field on the left. It's probably a school stadium. Oh, not a stadium for the field, but I mean school, like recreational area. I see lots of pickleball courts. If you've ever haven't heard before, pickleball is extremely popular in Utah. That's nice to see. There's a lot of courts here though, like 4, 8, 12, 16. Some of those back further on are tennis courts, so I think I see like 16 pickleball courts. And the little trail on the left here does take you down there. Maybe this isn't maybe this is just a recreation area for the Clearfield area, because I don't see a school building. I see a lot of playground type of stuff and multi-function fields. Oh, we're near like a little water area on the left. I didn't stop for it, but I saw several ducks. But here's a bigger portion of the water. Snag a picture of that. Overall, I'm pleasantly surprised or happy with the amount of greenery and trees that continued beyond Layton. We haven't quite gotten to We haven't quite gotten to the Ogden area yet, though. Well, here's a bench. Talked about teachers opening doors, dedicated to someone named Ann Young. So there must be ways where you can sponsor dedication benches along the trail. Even though I haven't seen many of them, I think that was the first dedicated bench I've seen. There's a bathroom that goes upward, but I assume our trail continues this way. It is slightly bumpy in certain spots here, but again, not bad at all. But it makes sense because there you go. I don't know if you could hear the bumps, but that was the bumpiest portion I've had since the start of the ride. But it also makes sense because look at all the trees that are on the left and right. I mean, presumably in the past, this area that we're on right now was all trees, and they were cut down to form this trail. I'm going to grab a picture of the high arching trees. Let me just peek real quick. Yeah, we're still going good on the trail. Thank goodness for Google Maps, right? I mean, I grew up before Google Maps and you just had the little atlases. But whether it be for driving or bike riding, it's just like Google Maps to me just is so revolutionary. Like everyone seems to use it. I can't fathom how people figure out the right way to go on a highway these days without knowing like the right spots to turn at from Google Maps. Oh. So the Denver Rio Grande Western Trail, established 2003. That's a good to know the background of when this trail was established. I wonder if this is like the official start of it. I know, it does continue. It's like a trail for bicycles. So it says Clinton Storage right there. So we must be in the city. I assume that Clinton is a city. We must be in Clinton now. So this is after a long 3-day weekend with Saturday. I mean, you can include Friday too, but Saturday, Sunday, but then Monday was the 4th of July. So I assume most people are back to work unless you're taking a vacation day like I am. So I imagine the trail would be a little more populated if this were Saturday or Sunday morning. But I wonder how many people who work, let's say they start, I don't know, 9 a.m., 8 a.m. I wonder how many of them still get up at like 5 o'clock a.m. and get a nice quick jog in or bike ride in. I bet there's quite a few people who do. Granted, they're probably not going super long like I am, but they probably go, you know, one way for however long, whether it be a mile or so, and then turn around. So the bike trail joins up with a crosswalk here. There's a Maverick gas station, so if you wanted to stop along the trail for quick refreshment, that seems like a nice spot for it. Not too far off the trail either. Light should be changing in a second here. This is the corner of 1800 North and 1000 West. So on 1000 West is what we're going alongside of on this trail. So there isn't actually a sidewalk here. If you're wanting to walk on this side of the street, you have to go over here on the trail. There is a sidewalk on the left side of the street. The houses in this area, both on my right side and on the left, are smaller in nature. Like, they're not those new developments that you saw earlier in the trail. I mean, the houses still look like they're not old houses, but they're along the lines of what I would see in a residential community that I'm familiar with, like either Cleveland or one of the nearby suburbs of Cleveland. We've been going, I just realized that I haven't been pedaling. Oh, look at this. How cool is that? Denver Rio Grande Western Rail Trail. So maybe this is the official start. We're seeing more decorations. Gotta get up for a second and take like a selfie with that one. Let's see on Google Maps. Well, it continues going. I don't know why they particularly have it here, but it does look pretty cool. And it says the same thing on the other side too. Denver, I mean the rail trail is kind of faded, but so that sign is right near 2300 North, which is the end of 1000 West. That's one of those self-crossing stations, but I really don't prefer to trust the traffic, even though they did stop. I only went after the vehicle came to a full stop. Look, you've got some cows on the left there. This is a case where you have sort of a small, I don't know, do you call those a farm? I call them a farm. Small farm. And now we are seeing some of these same newer houses with the big backyards again. Once again, another elevation difference. We're up above all these houses. Not as many as I would think, but there's certain pockets that you'll see a lot of solar panels on the rooftops. I hate to beat a dead horse, but great tree coverage again on the right side here, at least during this time of the day, providing shade. If it was later in the day, you wouldn't have that same coverage, at least on this part. If you're wondering how far we've traveled in terms of mileage, so not including where I started the video, where the city streets, because I wasn't timing it then, but when I got to that Layton station, which was pretty close to where we began the trail, it's been about 9.5 miles, so we're closing in on almost 10 miles of this Rio Grande trail out toward Ogden. We must be a little bit downhill here because it's showing me going 12 miles per hour, even though I don't feel like I'm pedaling faster than before. Kind of interesting, even though I don't think it picked up, but on the left there was a parking lot, almost as if there was a park, but there was no park. So the left side, it's a very big contrast here. The left side, you've got those newer looking houses. On the right side though, you've got houses that look quite old. Some of them a bit beat up, just in comparison. So and these houses on the left, even though they are nicer, they do look like they are on the older side too. Oh, look at this. A lot of these places have outdoor sheds besides their garage. Look at this garage or shed. It's like a double decker. It's like taller than the house almost. This intersection is pretty busy. I'm gonna let some traffic clear and then press the button.